brief, and we do have a little business to conduct. Rita Rotary's term is up, and the nominating committee has nominated her for another 3-year term. Are there any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor? Could I have a motion to pass unanimous?
I make a motion to pass.
Second.
Anybody against the motion? Hearing no opposing, I declare Rita Rotary to be our new board member for the next 3 years. And now I will turn this meeting over to Kelly, who will tell you about a little bit about what's been going on with the society this year.
All right. I can talk loud, but I'd rather do this. So, my name is Kelly Harold. For those of you that don't know, I'm the executive director, and work here in the office. Some of you guys got to see our office. Some of you know it already. Just down the hall, and we'll have it open after we're done here today to have people come in, take a look around, see what we've got for some of our collections that are on display in there, and then also ask any questions and get answers from myself and some of our board members that are here today. So first I just wanted to kind of give you guys a recap of last year. Since our last year's annual meeting, we've had, let's see here, we've had several programs we've done similar to this. Most of them have been just done by the office, not necessarily bringing in another speaker. An example would be at the home place in Mondovi last year. We did a history of the Buffalo County Fair, which we're actually going to be doing again in Gilmanton next week. So there's a homemakers meeting there that it'll be represented at. We also did a presentation on the history of the county at the West Central Wisconsin Homemakers Convention, which was here in Alma last year. Last year, besides having Kermit, who was here today, but he was our speaker last year at the annual meeting, we also had our Chautauqua in the summertime, in which we had several speakers ranging from the history of wildlife and in Buffalo County. Talked about shooting muzzleloaders. We talked about education in Buffalo County, and we actually had some teachers speak on what their experiences were as teaching in one-room schoolhouses or small schools here in the county. Another place, of course, we have our Backroads Tour every fall. Last year's was started in Mondovi at the tourist park and ended in Canton at the Robert Akela farm. Anybody that went on it last year know the weather wasn't the greatest, but it was a really pretty scenic route, and the end with Bob Akela's farm was really nice. He's got a wonderful farm collection, big machines, little machines, the whole works. So that was really fun for all involved. If you guys noticed when you came in, we've got some annual reports that you can take. We've also got more in the office, so if we run out, that's fine. But these are kind of give you a highlight of everything we did. One of the things that we put on the front here is a picture of the 1932 picnic day at the Walker's Corner School. Some of you here probably know where that is. I don't remember right offhand. So, but this is an example of a picture that one of our new policies that we started a little over a year ago has helped us a lot. This picture was in the possession of someone that didn't really want to get rid of the picture, but they wanted to share it. So what we were able to do is have them bring the pictures in. We were able to scan them on the computer with a high resolution so we can actually reprint them if needed, and we can use them in publications, whatever. But yet the family is still able to keep the original picture in their possession so that they don't have to lose it for their children or their grandchildren in the future. So that's one of the examples of something that's fairly new here at the Society that we've been able to do. You'll also notice we've got these nice blue brochures. For most of you here, I know already, are members, but if not, these are membership brochures. They kind of give you a quick overview of what our memberships entail. And there's a nice form to fill out to sign up. If you also notice back there, there's a picture of the 5 city railroad depots from Buffalo County. It's an 8x10 print that we did, and everyone that signs up as a member at the $35 or higher level gets a print for free. And they're really nice. All 5 of them are no longer in existence, so it's one of those things you won't find anywhere else. Another thing that we've got is these little white envelopes, which are actually part of a thing called the Tribute Club, which we started a little over a year ago also. The idea with these is you can take as many of these as you want home, and they work as really nice gifts, either in memory of someone. We've actually had families take them and use them at a loved one's wake or funeral, just as an example, because they wanted the memorials to go to us. That kind of example. Also, we put in here some other ideas as anniversaries, housewarming, just recognition for doing something nice, or thank yous that you could use them for. This year we've got some other things in mind right now. We've actually started, and some of you may have seen it in the newspaper, we started cataloging the collection from the Sherman House that we were able to get. It was something that we had a member that actually purchased a lot of items from the Sherman House, and every Thursday from 10:30 till about 4:30 we're cataloging them in a house on Main Street. If anyone wants to ever come and help out, that's a really fun time. I know Dorothy's been there a few times, and Jane Knoll's been there a few times, and there's some others, Sandra's been there, and some other people. A lot of it's Alma related stuff, but there's also stuff from around the county. And there's pictures galore that we haven't even gotten into yet, but every time we look at it, we want to get everything else done so we can get to the pictures. So that's one of the newest things that's happening. We're also planning a Chautauqua for this summer. It's going to kind of have a living off the land theme. And we don't have our speakers lined up yet, but we've got some good ideas on that, and that we should be hearing more about within the next month here. The Backroads Tour this fall. Right now we're planning for a Fountain City area tour. We don't know an exact route. We have one in mind, but of course it takes some planning before we know for sure what we can stop at, what we can't. So you'll have to watch for that too. And then other than that, we're always looking for volunteers here in the office or elsewhere to either help with our programs or whatever. Another thing just to mention quick, what I mentioned before, we've talked to other groups. Feel free, if you know of a group that would like to have a speaker come in, to contact our office. I don't typically do a lot of the speaking because Gary Schlestein is really good at it, so I let him do it. I do all the technical stuff behind the scenes. But that's something that we've gotten to do a lot more of, and it's been really well received. We've done family reunions even, or helped with family reunions. So that's something that's a possibility if you ever need some help with something. Other than that, I guess quick, I want to ask if anyone has any questions about the society that you think are important right now. Otherwise, you can talk to me later. If not, you can always ask me when we're doing our thing afterwards. We'll have food when we're done in the second floor conference room, which is just down the hall on the left-hand side. And our office is on the right-hand side, right across the hall from it. But today we are going to have 2 speakers. Both of them are World War II veterans. Bergie Ritscher was a pilot of B-25s. Bergie grew up in Alma and somehow managed to get to the other side of the world, to the Pacific. So he has some wonderful stories, I know, to share. And also Doug Ward, who grew up in Mondovi and was able to make it to the other direction, to Europe in World War II. And he was a belly gunner in a B-17. So he was the guy that hung on in that little tiny ball underneath the airplane. And so if you guys want to come up, we'll let you guys start out. And I think Doug's going to start out with his talk first. And we're giving them both microphones so they can butt into each other a little bit if they want. So. All right.
Okay, I don't know if I need that microphone. Can you hear me back there? No. Better use the mic.
Use the mic.
Use mine.
Bergie, this is on, so
Okay, all right. Okay, I'm Doug Ward, and I was born and raised in Mondovi. Both my grandparents, Ole Ward ran a hardware store, and my grandpa Standish, descendant of Miles Standish, which we were pretty proud of. It was a windmill, pump man, and blacksmith. And then that's kind of my back to where I came from. So I grew up in Mondovi, and when I graduated from high school, I worked 1 year at the ordnance plant making shells for the Presto company. And gas was hard to get, so I drove Julian Eads' car. He furnished the car and gasoline, and I carried a bunch of women to Eau Claire who also worked at the plant. Well, they were driving me crazy. One wanted to stop, the other didn't want to stop. So one day I stopped in front of the courthouse in Eau Claire, and they said, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" Well, I said, "Well, I'll be right back." I went up and enlisted. I knew I was going to get drafted anyway, but I'd rather volunteer than say, "Hey, you come on with me." So anyway, I enlisted in the Air Force, and after basic training, I went to Mississippi, Keisterfield, and took mechanic school. And after graduating from mechanic school, I went to Willow Run, where the Ford plant was turned over and made B-24s. And I came out of there as a crew chief on a B-24. One little incident we had when I was there, they'd take us out and march us on the road, and then a small plane like a Piper Cub or a Tailorcraft would fly over and throw out bags of flour. And we were supposed to hit the ditch and duck and everything. Well, I was watching this bag come down, and all of a sudden I put my head, squash, I got hit right on the head. And I thought, oh, what are my luck going to be if I get hit out of all these guys, and I get hit with a flower? What are my chances are when I go overseas? But I was one of the lucky ones, I made it back. So anyway, then from Willow Run, we flew that B-24 up to Holman Airport in St. Paul, where they put the Northern Bomb Sight on. And that place was just covered with B-24s, and they'd take them up over Lake Superior and test them. And that was the Northern Bomb Sight was locked up in the bank vault in St. Paul because it was such a secret device they had. And from then on, I went on from St. Paul to Wendover, Utah, where I took gunnery school. And then after gunnery school, I wound up and joined my crew to fly the B-24 overseas. Well, we went down to Florida and down to Brazil, and when we went from Brazil, we went across over to Dakar, Africa. That was the shortest route. And we also took a crate of homing pigeons with us. And we weren't supposed to feed them, but if we went down, we were supposed to release them so they knew what happened to us. And so then from Dakar, Africa, we went up to North Africa, Casablanca, Algiers, Tunis. And one little incident I had, we got to Casablanca, and we were all going to go to town, but one had to stay back and guard the plane. And I was unfortunate, I had to stay and guard the plane, and now I was really disappointed because I wanted to get to Casablanca. Okay, so they just issued us these nice new leather jackets, and that was the pride of the Air Force. So the boys, they all got on the truck and headed to town with their new shiny jackets, and as soon as they got off the truck, the officer went one direction, and the MPs with all the enlisted men said, "Come with us, boys, you're out of uniform." So they spent the night, or the afternoon and the night in what they call a big bullpen, and here they were in there freezing to death, and the drunks were coming in, and they're stone sober sitting there, and I thought I was missing the fun, So the next day we were supposed to take off, and they didn't show up, so the pilot had to go and finally bail them out, and that was one of the misfortunes that they had and I didn't. So anyway, then we got to North Africa with this brand new shiny B-24. They took it away from us and gave us an old beat-up 17. And the first time I ever flew on a B-17. So here I am going on a mission down in the ball turret, not knowing a heck of a lot about it because I didn't really train for that, and it was jamming, and the sweat was running off of me, and I was scared to death. What am I doing down here? And I don't know how to run this thing. Finally, I worked it out. So we flew 15 missions out of Italy, and we bombed Ploesti, which is one of the oil fields in Romania, and we bombed 15 missions, flew 15 missions out of Italy, and then we transferred to England for a D-Day, and then I continued my missions out of England during D-Day, and we bombed Germany and France and all those countries. Now here's a picture. That's the picture of how I sat in the ball turret. You were curled up down there for 8-9 hours, and you would roll up there. You didn't have your parachute or anything down there. Your parachute was up in the plane, and you didn't have any flag suit or anything. All you had was just that plexiglass around you for protection. These are the 50 caliber machine guns we had. I had 2 50 calibers along each side of my leg that I shot. You sat like this. You were rolled up, and here are your controls, and then here's what you look for. So then, this is a piece of flak. That's what they shot at you, and that would go up like fireworks. It would go up to 30,000 feet, and then explode, and all the shrapnel would come out. And flak was more dangerous, more scary because you couldn't do anything about it. You just had to shoot, and you just have to wade right through it. On fighters, you can shoot back at. And this piece of flak, we got hit. I picked it out of it knocked one of our engines out, and we made it home with 3 engines. This picture here, this is my favorite picture. It shows the ambulances and crew members waiting at the end of a mission, and my caption is watching, waiting, and wondering. They all go down and wait at the end of the runway to see if their crews are coming back. And this is kind of a plane, that's down the ball, that's where I rode down the ball turret, and you're kind of God's mercy down there. After watching the History Channel, I think you got me back there. I also, I got the Distinguished Line Cross, and I got the Air Medal of 4 oak leaf clusters. That means I won it 4 times or 5 times. And this here now this is a story in itself. This is Chris Huntsman's A Purple Heart. Chris was my classmate, and he's buried out here in Tell Cemetery. He was 19 years old. He's supposed to be the youngest ace in both wars. And he flew over to my base one day, and we took pictures. And I can still remember he took the film and stuck it in his pocket right there. And he said, I'll get it developed. And so I was supposed to go to London in a couple of days to meet him for his 20th birthday, and I went, and he never showed up. So the next time I got a pass, I caught a ride and went over to his base, and I talked to his wingman that was flying beside him. And you see, they have to fly real low. The flak towers are up here, so they fly real low to get under the flak towers so they don't shoot their own personnel on the ground. So he was just right down, laying it right on the ground. And when he went to pull up, his wing caught in the ground and flipped him over, and he said all he saw was a ball of fire. Well, then, after I got home, I got in contact with some of his crew members, and I found out that his wingman that I had talked to a couple of days later, he was killed. He was strafing a railroad train, and the train blew up, and he was killed. So the only thing I could say is don't talk to me. You know. But, he was quite a guy. See, anything else now, can I tell you? Or can you want to know? Yeah, that's the 17. That's our B-17. There'd be 1,500 of these planes up in the air at one time, and the Germans would wait for you to come in, and we'd have escort come in so far, and as soon as the escort ran out of gas and we headed home, the Germans would be waiting for us, and until the P-51s came out, and then the P-51s had longer range. I remember one time I was flying with a different crew. It was a new crew, and we were flying tail end Charlie, that's the last one in the corner, and they came in and knocked out one of our engines, and I called to the pilot. I says, call for escort, call for escort. Oh, what are we supposed to do? Geez, I said, nobody else knows we're hit back here. So our lead commander, he heard, are you guys in trouble? And we said, yeah. So he said, well, we'll slow up and close you in and protect you. And just about that time, out of the clouds here came two P-51s. And they put the run on them. They were just like they were laying up there waiting for them. And they Chris, he used to say, you know, I felt so sorry for you guys going through these flak-infested areas. You couldn't do anything. You just had to get on the bomb run and go, or we could do evasive and try to maneuver and get out of it. Like I say, I was down in Baltimore there for 7-8 hours at a time, and I counted 100 parachutes in the air at one time. 10 planes right ahead of us were hit, and they bailed out, and we had our lead plane right ahead of us, got a direct hit right in the bomb bay and was completely blown up, and our waist gunner says, I think somebody got hit, there's parts flying by. Yeah, the pilot said, yeah, the lead plane just got blown up. But, hey, I was 19 years old, not a care in the world. Come back and go to town, you know, and I felt sorry for these fellows that were married and had wives and children back home, you know, but they wanted the young guys that didn't have a care in the world, just give her help Charlie, and you know, and that's the attitude that, and of course, I patterned myself after old Eddie Rickenbacker. He was a great pilot. He had many close encounters with death, and he always preached, you know, when your time comes, it comes. And so I was a strong believer in that. And then longevity, now I got to get into a little longevity. Longevity, I'm 83, and it's your attitude towards life. Don't be a downer. Hell, it's going to rain, it's going to rain, you know. Be an upper, be around people that are up. And that's the best thing for health is not going down to that coffee shop in the morning to listen to these old guys grump about everything. So the gas prices are high. So the gas prices are high, but we can still drive. You know, nobody says, hey, you can't. And then, you know, they say, well, why didn't you talk more about the war years ago? You know, but people, they felt kind of guilty until the Holocaust came out. Then after we saw what they did to the Jews, we really didn't know what we were fighting for. We didn't realize all that was going on. And then after that came out, then you felt, well, you know, maybe we were doing the right thing. So, you know, I guess that's about it. I don't know, anybody got any questions?
Yeah, I got one question.
Sure.
Was it possible for a belly gunner to bail out of these other people?
You had to get up in the plane. Your parachute was up in the plane, and your shoes were tied to your parachute. And now when I think about it, if you got hit, that parachute would have probably been way back in the tail, you know. And one time I flew a waist gun because they were short waist gun, so I took 2 flak suits, and they're heavy, and I had both of these on. and then somebody didn't have one, so I gave it to them. But I go to this window, oh, maybe if I'm over here, you know, well, maybe if I'm back here. Finally, I just get tired, you know, and I said to myself, for God's sake, pick one place and stay. You know, where I was down the ball third, I was there. You know, I didn't have any place to go. And then, well, when the pilot and co-pilot relieved themselves, they'd always say, stow your turret. So, I'm going to turn around like that, and it would splash in the back. You know, well, this one time, it kept splashing on the windshield, and I only had a window about like, I said, well, someone who just relieved themselves, or we got a gas leak. And the pilot said, oh God, he says, I forgot to tell the new co-pilot. So I said, ice that thick. I said, I can't see things, so well, you might as well come up in the plane and take a waist gun, because you can't see anything down there anyway. You know, little things like that, you know, that kind of pass the time away.
These folks might find it a point of interest, but Ford Motor Company turned out one B-24 every 58 minutes.
58 minutes.
58 minutes.
Yeah.
And 70,000 people working
You know, this is what's so amazing. I just watched Pearl Harbor last night, you know, on the History Channel, I think. And to think how the United States mobilized to get the tanks, the trucks, airplanes, everything, within almost 1 year they were ready to, full-time to fight, you know.
On every mission, was it always the very same crew, the 10 or 12 when made up the crew, or would they sometimes mix different ones at different missions?
We usually had our same crew, because you got so you knew everyone. But there were times like I was in the hospital, I had the mumps, I was in the hospital for a month or so, and then I jumped on different crews to catch up so I could go home with my original bunch, yeah. Because you kind of depended on your buddies to help you in case you needed help. There was am I taking too much time? The ball turret ran on a big ring, a big ring, and cogs, and I swung it around and crunch. I ran her back and I ran her around again, crunch. Finally, I ran her back and I ran her around, and she went. And the radio operator says, oh my God, you just chewed up my headset. It had fallen down in there. And God, now if I'd known that, you know, it could have jammed and I could have been stuck down there, you know. No, yeah.
Another point, there were 38,000, I think, if I recall this right, 38,000 fellows from the 8th Air Force killed, and there was a like number of casualties. I think that's the figure that I read.
You mean they were either killed or not?
Yeah, in the 8th Air Force.
You either made it or you didn't make it.
38,000
That's very light.
were killed.
You either made it or you didn't make it,
Yeah.
you know.
I have a comment, but if I remember my history correctly, you said you were on the Pulaski oil field brigade.
I wasn't on the original.
Oh, but there were a total of 1,500 bombers shot down over Pulaski.
Yeah, but Vernon McDonough from Mondovi, who also was a classmate of mine, was on the original. And that was, they had to come back and go around again. They missed the target or something, and they had to come back. And then Vernon, I mean, McDonough's come from Odina country, so a lot of people know the McDonough, Sammy and all. But then he went down and he flew the Burma over the hump. And that was another story of unsung heroes. I mean, they were flying the old C-47s, and they fly over these, and they drop 300 or 400 feet at a time. And then they'd have to circle to come up over the Himalayas. And they were carrying gasoline and Chinaman. And they said there was nothing for them to throw out of Chinaman. They laughed like that. They didn't have any value of life. They thought it was, throw them Chinamen right out. They laughed at the big joke. So
Where were you at the end of the war?
I was out in Texas.
Okay. Did you ever see any of the atrocities at Auschwitz or the?
No, we never, we were always stationed in England, you know, so we never, but there'd be, on D-Day, you could walk across that English Channel. There were so many ships going across, you could almost walk across it. It was just covered with ships. And then, you know, I got 2 missions with St. Lo here. The old saying is, when the Germans come, the English run. When the English come, the Germans run. When the Americans come, everybody runs. Here's a mission at St. Lo. We went 2 days, and we were supposed to bomb over the road to support our troops. But the lead bomber miscalculated, and we bombed a lot of our own troops. In fact, we even killed one of our own generals. You know. And so then the next day he says, hey, make sure you get over the road today, you know, so you don't kill any more of our own troops. But those are things and mishaps. Okay, Bergie.
One of the either B-24 or B-17 had electrical control curve, the other had a hydraulic control curve. Which way was
Ours was electric.
electric?
Yeah.
Was the B-24 hydraulic then?
Yeah, I think so.
One of them.
See, the B-24 was retractable.
Hydraulic system couldn't get out.
Yeah, that was, we had our hydraulic system shot out once, and we saw where they put parachutes out the window, you know, to stop it. So we chopped the windows out, and then they hollered to me, they said, will you come up and help us with this hydraulics and see if you can do anything? So I crimped it and held it with a pair of pliers, and the plane stopped. We got her stopped, and we came back and we had these windows chopped out. And geez, the ground crew, they were mad because, you know, they had to replace it. But it would save the plane. I mean, we'd have probably thrown one out and had it caught and then swung the plane around. God only knows what would have happened. But, okay, any more questions?
I'd ask, how many missions before you were allowed to be repatriated back to the homeland?
I flew 32.
32?
32, yeah. And, let's see, anything else? Well, I appreciate you asking me to come, okay?
In those 32 missions, how many times were you actually required to shoot at fighters? Out of
Shoot
all
at
three?
planes?
Yeah.
How many times you were required, or how many times you had to?
How many times did you feel obliged to?
And another question is, did you ever shoot one down? You know, that's always the question they ask you. And of course, what do you say? Oh, sure. So nine guys all shot the same plane. You don't know that. But,
Thank you very much.
yeah, well...
My wife is waiting, and if I keep her waiting any longer, I'll be shot down.
Well, thanks anyway for inviting me.
Hooked up?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. Well, Doug, I think you and I probably followed the same path a little bit in our life. I think I might have had a wild hair when I was a kid and when I was young. A friend of mine got together and we went to California on a freight train before the war. And my dad thought he was paying a ticket on the passenger train, and we jumped the freight and we got on, went on to Minnesota and got off at Roseville, California. We were on that train 7 days and 7 nights, and we needed a bath. So we went skinny dipping in the Sacramento River for about an hour and got most of it off. And anyway, my path to the Air Force started with standing in line in a Navy recruiting office out in Los Angeles. I was out there when the war broke out, and I had a register under the Manhattan Beach draft board, and they were filling their quotas out there with us Midwestern boys. And so we had to make a move in a hurry to get aboard. I tried to get in the Navy Air Force, and I couldn't pass a physical, so then I was really getting close, and I went to the Army Air Corps to see if I could get signed up there, and they had a waiting list about 2 months long, and I'd have been drafted before that, before I got inducted, so the guy asked me, where you from? And I said, well, I'm from Wisconsin. He said, whereabouts? And I said, well, a little town you never heard of. And he said, well, where? And I said, well, along the river about 100 miles south of the city. He said, where? And I said, Elma. He said, well, I'm from Eau Claire. He said, well, why'd you go back to Eau Claire? There won't be that many waiting back there, and you might be able to beat the draft. And that's what happened. I did get back, and I didn't get drafted anyway. So anyway, that's where I started from, and I guess I could relate to a lot of Doug's anxieties and stuff. I always had a real admiration for the guys that flew in the back of those airplanes. That was a gut wrencher back there, if anything ever was, because most of the time the guys in the back couldn't see what was going on with front. They were dependent on intercoms and stuff to find out if what was going on, and it was not a good place to be in, I don't think. I guess I would rather talk a little bit more about the war in the South Pacific, and and how it differed from the war in Europe. First of all, the climate had a great deal to do with the type of equipment that worked out there. In the Air Force, the B-38 was not very successful in Europe. That was found to be caused by the extreme altitudes that they were flying at and the extreme cold temperatures. Over in South Pacific, the B-38 worked like a charm. In fact, Long flew the B-38. And I could relate to his air cover with the P-51s. When the P-38s couldn't go, we wanted the P-51s. And when the P-51s couldn't go, then the P-47s went. And most of the time, they were the first to turn around. They didn't have the range that the 38-51 had. But anyway, the difference also, I guess, in the two theaters of war was that the European theater, I surmised that was more from a fixed base situation, where they had bases that stayed bases for the duration of the war. In the South Pacific, the bases kept moving. In our case, the base moved from Port Moresby up into New Guinea and a couple of places. There was eight major moves for the bomb group, and every time it was a move, it was onto a area that had been captured from the Japanese, and we used their airfields in just about all cases, I guess. They also had three operational moves where the group worked, flew off of like Palawan and places like that. And so anyway, the units there were very mobile. They had to be mobile. Also, the living conditions were very archaic. Everybody lived in tents over there, and the maintenance was done out of tents in Quonset, see. And they did the maintenance on the airplanes at night because of the heat and humidity, and mosquitoes, and all things that happen in the tropics. The maintenance was generally done, or mostly done, at night. In the South Pacific, the big effort down there in order to compete in the war was of course blockade by sea and by air. In our particular situation, that was, most of our missions were against Japanese shipping, and they were not all easy missions. All the Japanese ships had the pretty sophisticated anti-aircraft. They had the rapid-fire 35mm cannon that was nasty, and we didn't deal with the heavier flak. We were scraping off it. But anyway, that was probably the difference between the two theaters. As far as getting shot at, I think it's probably the same wherever you fly. But anyway, I guess the unit I was in was the 345th Guam group. It was called the Air Apaches, and they were eventually equipped with the B-25J. When the unit got down to the South Pacific and found out that their major missiles were going to be shipping, they found out that the medium altitude B-25 was not the kind of tool they wanted to use. They needed something that they could get at the ships with, dropping bombs from 10,000, 15,000 feet on the ship. It just wasn't working. So a guy by the name of Pappy Dunn, who had made his fame in developing anti-aircraft and air-to-ground type armament, took a look at the B-25 and decided that they could modify that B-25, take out the nose. The navigator flew in the nose, and he had one gun out of the nose, and then there were the top turret with 250 calibers, and then there were 2 waist guns and a tail gun. And that airplane was designed to fly at like 10 to 12, 15,000 feet of medium altitude and drop bombs at the North Bomb Sight. Dropping against ships didn't work. North Bomb Sight that or something like that. So anyway, they took that B-25 into Australia, and this was before I got the unit. They took it to Australia and they stripped it down and took all of the butt guns out of it. They put a solid nose on it and put 8 50 caliber machine gun noses in the nose. And that's the 50 caliber that Doug showed here. They put 8 in the nose, and they put 2 package guns on each side of the B-25. And then you still had the top turret and the 2 race guns and the tail gun. They went into combat then, and were starting to fly missions against Japanese harbors and shipping in the South Pacific, down in the New Britain area, Rabaul and WWII and places like that. And this airplane was really effective against ship. They went in with these forward-firing guns. There was 14 forward-firing 50s, and they were designed to merge at about 1,000 or 1,500 yards. And you can imagine 600 rounds a minute out of 14 guns going into a barrel, and realize the destruction that gives. Along with that, the armament then was 500 bomb bombs, and mostly 400 or 500 bomb bombs. So, and the tactic was for low level and skip bombing. In my case, after graduating from flying school, I at La Junta, Colorado, and taken some medium altitude training in North Carolina. We were shipped down to 100 field Savannah, Georgia, and found out that we were going to be now a crew on a B-25J, which was just out of production. In fact, that airplane we got only had 15 hours on it. And that airplane was equipped up with 8 forward-firing machine guns in the nose and 4 package guns at the top turret, and then we had 4 5-inch rockets mounted under each wing. And this airplane was about twice as heavy as the ones we were used to flying in training, and it was a little difficult to transition into that airplane. It had different flying characteristics. Well, anyway, we got a brand new airplane, and then we got a foot locker, and we didn't know where we were going. So the rumor got around, just like it always does, that this airplane was going to go to either Alaska or to the Aleutians. So everybody jumped the ship and went downtown and bought woolen socks and woolen underwear and put them in these foot lockers. They made an APO number on them, and they shipped out. Well, we shipped out later, and we left Savannah and flew to Dyersburg, Tennessee, and refueled, stayed overnight. And the next morning, one of my hardest combat missions developed. We were standing at the operations desk and getting our flight plan ready for a flight to Albuquerque, New Mexico. And a little second Lieutenant Wack was standing there. She was on emergency leave and she wanted to go to San Francisco, California. And she asked if she could ride along. And we were going to Sacramento. And yeah, you can go, but you have to have a parachute, you know. Well, she got a parachute. And I said, you know, this B-25 isn't plumbed very well for passengers. Well, she said, I'll be all right. What she didn't know was that the airplane was brand new and we were running calibrations on instruments on gas consumption and stuff like that. And it was going to take us about 4 hours longer than a normal trip. And so we're in the air about 2 or 3 hours, and all of a sudden, well, first of all, we got in the airplane, and there wasn't any room in that 25. The pilot, the co-pilot sat up front, and then the navigator was in a little hutch behind it. The engineer was back there, and the only room was behind the pilot's seat, behind the co-pilot's seat. The parachutes were all stacked up. So anyway, we found room for her, and we were on our way, and we got out about 3 hours or so, and she tapped me on the shoulder and said, I have to have some relief here. I'm in trouble, you know. And I said, oh my God, no. Well, anyway, there was no place out front that we could accommodate her, so I shipped her back to the back of the airplane, and she had to crawl across a crawlway above the bomb bay, which was quite small, but she squeezed through that one all right. She got back there, and I called ahead on the intercom and told the radio man to hang up one of the engine covers back there and see if they can give her a little privacy. And I said, and do it in a gentlemanly manner, you know, too. And so anyway, they did, and then she got back there and she decided that operation wasn't going to work. Well, we went to Plan 2 then, and we had an in-flight lunch in the box, in the box with a can of fruit juice. About a can of fruit juice. So we cut the top off the fruit juice, and sent the fruit juice can back, and everything turned out fine. So anyway, we're on our way to Albuquerque, and we have our records with us. So I'm kind of curious as to what my efficiency rating were and stuff. So I asked for my packets. They were in manila packets like that, and they were bound up with cord and wax seals on them. So I massaged the wax seal, and pretty soon I just slipped the cord a little bit, so I opened this thing up. There my records were in my lap, so at the time I was smoking a cigarette, and the smoke was getting in my eyes, so I reached over and pulled the handle on the window back, out, and a bunch of... Oh boy, so anyway, the cord went around, and the wax seal went back on, and the packet went behind the seats again, and I thought, you know, nobody will ever know. That's not true. But anyway, they found out. But anyway, we went, our trip then took us we went to, with this airplane, we went to Albuquerque, New Mexico, then to Mesa Field, California, and there the airplane was stripped down. They took the guns out, took the armor plating out, put some extra gas tanks in, and got us ready to fly across the Pacific to, our first stop would have been Hawaii there. And there were eight crews in this project, and we were all supposed to be together. And but it comes to take off, they got us out of bed about 1 o'clock in the morning and briefed us on the weather and stuff. And we were going to take off and get to Hawaii before the sun got around, and we'd be flying into the sun. So anyway, we were at the end of the runway, running up an engine, and all of a sudden we picked up a severe vibration in one of the engines. And we had to shut it down, and the other airplanes took off and headed for Hawaii, and we had to go back to the hangar. Turned out that we picked up a piece of copper tubing at the end of the prop and knocked the prop out of balance. And by the prop being out of balance, it loosened the engine mounts, and so they had to pull the engine, and we were there for another week or so. Well, then finally, when our turn came, we were all alone. We were the only airplane to leave, and we took off. And this was on a Monday, and they hadn't had anybody cross since Friday, so there were no weather forecast out in the Pacific. And we took off, not knowing that we were going to have weather. We got out there about 3 hours or so, and we started running into some light rain. And that wasn't so bad, but the farther we went, the worse it got, and pretty soon we were at a point of no return where we couldn't get back to the States, so we had to keep going. And we started picking up ice, and we couldn't get above it because we didn't have any oxygen, we couldn't get below it, it was freezing right down to the deck. And we experienced, first time in my life I ever saw St. Elmo's fire. It's a condition of static electricity that builds up on the outside of the airplane. Wherever there's a little friction, like on a rivet, this static electricity will build up and get to be like a little blue worm, and all of a sudden it'll break loose and come right up over top of the windshield and on off the trailing edge of the wing and stuff like that. Same thing builds up on the props, and all of a sudden big balls of blue fire will come off the prop. And when it's bright enough in that airplane that at night read a newspaper. And we eventually got out of the storm. The normal trip to Hawaii is a 12-hour trip, and we got out of the storm. We didn't have a clue as to where we were. I mean, we didn't know what kind of wind we were getting there. We couldn't get down and get any drift off the wave. We couldn't get above to get the stars. So we were just floundering out there. Finally, we got in range of Hilo, Hawaii, which is about 80 miles closer than Honolulu. And we got a hold of them on the radio, and they gave us a steer into Hilo. And we had a choice then, and they said then that the air base was under instrument conditions. So we had the choice of making an instrument letdown and be 80 miles closer, or going into Honolulu and probably possibly running out of gas. So we chose to do the Hilo thing. So they gave us a grade-in approach clearance into the approach light on instruments, and we come in on instruments, and we were at about 4,000 feet above sea level. And there's a procedure turn you make. You go out and make a turn, and then you let down all the while. You aren't seeing the ground in the instrument landing, and you're supposed to break out, and there the runway is. Well, we were going across there to 4,000 or 5,000 feet and looked down, and there the runway was. So we thought it was prudent to cancel the instrument landing approach and go to the contact approach. And so we just peeled off and headed for the runway, and the radio man had the trailing antenna out. He had that out for making contact with Hilo, and there's a little electric motor that wound that thing back up. And when I gave him the call to get his trailing antenna in, he started the motor, but he didn't get the antenna, and we ripped the antenna off in making the landing. But then we got in, and we had about 15 minutes more gas left. We had been in the air 13 hours and 15 minutes. So we made a good decision there on that one. We could have lost the airplane on the first flight. Well, anyway, when we left Sacramento or Mesa Field, two of the crew members were taken off the airplane and shipped over by boat to lighten the load. And then we made up the crew again over there. They put the guns back in, put the armor plating back in, and then we were on an island hopping to our destination. And the first trip was to Christmas Island, a little spit of island out almost on the equator, almost due south of Hawaii. It was about a 6-hour flight. And the next flight was to a little island called Canton in the Phoenix Island group. Just a little spit of an island too. And the next stop was Tarawa, and then Guadalcanal, and then Finch Haven, New Guinea. And when we got to Finch Haven, New Guinea, it was raining. I don't think I saw it rain that hard in my life. And the first landing on these masts, and it scared the pants out of us. We landed, and the mast started pushing up ahead of us. And we thought we were going to lose that airplane and the whole thing here. But anyway, we got down, and then we went as far as Biak, a little island off the northwest tip of New Guinea. And there, the island was a huge island. It had been taken with some pretty serious fighting, but it was a replacement depot for the whole South Pacific, and there was airplanes parked all over the place. And when we landed, we saw the handwriting on the wall that we were going to lose our precious airplane, and this was just a replacement center. So we dropped the airplane off there, and then they shipped us on to Nabzab, New Guinea, and now we're getting ready for the fly the B-25J. They had some combat crews down there, and we flew about 5 practice missions against bypass Japanese bases at WWII and on New Britain Island, Rabaul. And there, the emphasis then was on low-level formations lying and evasive action and strafing and dropping skip bombs. And so after, I think about 4 missions there, we were shipped, and we went to up to the Philippines, and we were at Clark Field. We got to Clark Field just before the unit moved up. The whole group moved up from San Marcelino to Clark Field. And Clark Field is a huge facility, and we were, the 345th was one of the first units to get there after the war was over. But we had kind of choice living conditions there. We had a nice area for our tents and stuff like that. And there was a lumber yard at Wainini Point, not Wainini Point, Cavite Point. The Navy had a huge lumber yard, and if you had the right bargaining chips, you could get some nice plywood and get some nice 2x4s and nice 2x6s to frame out a tent. And a quart of whiskey was the best collateral you could get. But anyway, that was always good exchange if you had some booze. Well, anyway, we got to Clark Field, and I flew a couple of missions as co-pilot, and the unit was beat up when they got there. They had taken some heavy losses down in the South China Seas, down in Mindoro area and Leyte, and it was a kind of a regrouping situation there, and there were replacement crews coming in from other outfits, and then there was the 8 crews that left together from here, ended up with the group, and 3 of us stayed in the 500th then. Well, anyway, the unit flew out of Clark Field. I flew my first combat missions out of Clark Field, and my first one was a artillery spotting mission over Ipoh Dam, a big dam just north of Manila, and the Japanese were trying to shell that thing and blow the dam out, and they sent an airplane up at night to fly around at about 10,000 feet. We couldn't go above because we didn't have oxygen. So anyway, I flew co-pilot on a mission, and we get out there about an hour or two, and all of a sudden they shot a white phosphorus shell up at us, and it went off way ahead of us. It didn't hurt the airplane, but we got a flash in our eyes and it wrecked our night vision. And then the pilot turned to me and he says, I was a co-pilot all the while, and I just got checked out as first pilot. He says, I never made a night landing with a D-25. And we didn't. Well, I said, we'll make it all right. So we did. We got down, and then, but anyway, that was his last mission, and he went home. And then I ran into him again about 6 years ago at San Diego at a reunion, and he needed that one mission to get a couple points so he could go home. So his name was Greenstein, and I always looked for him in the roster and stuff, and I thought something happened to him. And I found out he came back to the States and changed his name to Green and got to be an attorney and was well and happy over in Pennsylvania. Well, anyway, the Philippines campaign was, there was ground fighting going on in the northern part of the Philippines. In fact, we flew some ground support missions with that strafe with the bomb. We were pretty effective against any kind of entrenchment or any kind of fortification, because that airplane could really wreck things. But anyway, I flew a ground support mission up in Baguio Hills where the 32nd Division was dug in up there. And a couple of days later, I had a call from a guy down on during a rainy day. A guy was down at the tower and wanted to talk to me, and here to Glenn Herman, the guy went to California with the freight train. He was up in the 32nd Division, and he was in the mortar crew up there, and he and Jerome Becker were down there together, so it's how small the world is. Well, anyway, while at Clarkton, we were flying missions against the China coast, against shipping, mostly shipping, either at sea or in harbors. We prefer to have them out at sea, of course, but if they were in harbors, we'd go in after them. And they got us, we lost a lot of airplanes in that maneuver. In fact, we lost our squadron commander over Formosa in a strafing mission, not a strafing mission in the harbor. But the complex of the war was changing here. We were no longer running into a lot of fighter opposition. We were always having top cover with P-38s or P-51s, once in a while P-47s. But anyway, the weather forecasts in that area were non-existent. There was no weather forecast coming out of China. And in order to fly a mission against Formosa or against the China coast, they really had to know what kind of weather they were dealing with. So whenever there was a mission of that nature scheduled, somebody had to fly a weather recon. And I drew the short straw on a situation there. And we went out one night, and this was in they used a B-25 with a glass nose, and it was stripped down and didn't have any armament on it, and didn't have any oxygen on it. And so anyway, we flew out on radio silence and observed the weather along the China coast. We didn't get close enough to the coast to actually see the coast, but of course, the navigator, we were along the coast. And then we went up past Formosa on this particular run, and then back to the base. And the security around the bases out there in the Pacific was tight. And generally, the Marine Corps was in charge of security, and they challenged everything that came in to the different islands out there. And they were flying Corsairs, F-4Us, and they were very easy to identify. But anyway, this particular night, we were coming back, and the airplanes had little transmitters on them called IFF. It was a little radio transmitter that IFF stood for identification, friend or foe. And you had it on when you went out, and as soon as you got away from the island, you turned it off, because the Japanese could monitor that stuff too. So anyway, we're coming back in, and after about an 8-hour flight, and the nice moonlight night, and everybody was coming back fat, dumb, and happy, and all of a sudden we got a call and a clear from the Lingayen radar station, and it said the aircraft was certain position, which was us. Your cockerel is not crowing. It said the cockerel crowing was the IFF. It was supposed to be on, and then that was the term for the IFF. So anyway, we checked it, and it was on, and then all of a sudden, we in the clear, the voice came across the radio and said shackle. Well, the shackle was the next way of communicating or identifying yourself. Every 15 minutes of the day had a column, and had columns of letters. And at this particular hour, they gave you one letter, and you look up the time. Of course, your time was synchronized. You look up the time and see what that letter was, and then give them the 8 letters around it, I guess. And anyway, we did that, and everything was clear. Oh, we thought we were home free now, And the navigator was sitting up in the nose and enjoying the moonlight over the Pacific. All of a sudden, he reported 2 aircraft ahead, And here, there was 2 P-61, these night fighters that came out. They came out, and if we wouldn't have been in the B-25, we probably got shot down, because the B-25 was the only airplane, twin-engine airplane, twin-tailed airplane that the Japanese didn't have. They didn't have a twin-tailed airplane. So these P-61 pilots came out there and thought of the B-25, so they left it come in. Well, anyway, they got on our wings and followed us right into Clark Field, and we weren't very popular when we landed there, because we had blacked out the whole area for about half an hour, I guess. So anyway, we went to briefing and gave the weather report, and we were in hot water about coming in on it, without identification. And we went through a procedure showing them what we had. It turned out that they had given us the sheet from the 24 hours before. It could have been a long swim. But anyway, that B wasn't me. So anyway, Clark Field was a very, very congested area. That was the only big major airport on Luzon. There were other ones on Luzon, but Clark had the facility. Fort Stossenberg was right there. Manila was only 40 miles away, so Clark Field was a big military installation. And the airplane from that part of the Pacific we're staging there to move north. And it got to be a real congested area around there. And we had B-24 groups, two B-24 groups there, two B-25 groups there, a P-38 group, and a P-47 group, and a P-51 group. I'm talking about groups now with 4 squadrons, and and maybe 250 people in each squadron. And everybody had, each squadron had about 12 or 14 airplanes, so it was really congested. And planes coming back from missions that have wounded aboard, and they'd have priority, and then most of the time most of them were coming back short on fuel, and everybody wanted to get on the ground. So anyway, the fighters would come back and peel off. They'd come in on the direction of the landing and just peel off and make a 360, come in and set down. Where the bigger bombers and transport planes, they had to fly a rectangular pattern. They'd join on the down the leg and then come across the base leg and then land. And it just slowed things up quite a bit. Anyway, our squadron commander was kind of an innovative guy, and he went to the commanding general there and said, that he could make that kind of a landing with the B-25 too. So anyway, here we are, coming in 3 abreast and peeling off and circling and coming right in land. So we tried it out, and instead of a 5-minute landing procedure, we were getting a 12-ship formation on the ground in about 30-40 seconds by landing on the opposite side of the runway. So that worked out real good. I think the biggest bottleneck was the fact that the traffic was so heavy at Clark Field. It just was unbelievable. It was like a beehive. Just like there were airplanes all over the place at all times. It was scary. It was scary. And this was not only a day, it was at night too. Well, anyway, from Clark Field, then we eventually the war moved up, and I had a unusual flight out of there. The 43rd Fighter Group was a P-47 outfit, and the Okinawa battle was going on, and the Okinawa was being defended by the Navy. They needed ground aircraft. So anyway, they picked the 43rd Fighter Group to be transferred up to Okinawa, and that was a pretty long overwater run, and it was a dogleg type thing away from Formosa, because the Japanese were still in Formosa and had fighter bases there. So anyway, I drew the short straw on that one, and we flew up took off from Clark Field and joined 50 airplanes up, and that was a mess, I'll tell you. So anyway, we got up to Layog and landed at Layog, and they had to file a report there back to Clark Field, and I went into the operations tent, and there was a desk there, and there was a guy sitting in the back of the desk, back of the room, with reading some comic books, I think, and looked at him, and he looked at me, and it was Buzz Holt from Pippin. So anyway, I ran into him just by accident. So anyway, we took the group of P-47s up to Yontan, and they landed there, and we slept under the airplane wing that night and then came back. And the guy that was my radio man on that particular mission wrote an article about it, and it's in this draper here, if you want to pass it around here. It's a little... but anyway, that was kind of the end of the campaign at Clark Field, and then the war moved up to Okinawa and Hiroshima, of course. And the war took on a little different stand there. We were on the little island of Hiroshima, just off Okinawa, and there were 3 airstrips on there, so now we have lots of room. And now we're flying missions against the Japanese mainland and the Inland Sea, and Korea, South Korea, and the Busan area, and the Sea of Japan. And it was a different type of a mission. Ordinarily, ordinary missions where we brief the pilot, the co-pilot, or excuse me, the pilot and navigator would brief on the night before the mission, and then the full crew would brief on the morning of the mission. And then you put on your flak jacket and your survival kit and your Mae West and jump in the airplane and go. And when we got to Aishima, then we were flying toward Japan at night and rendezvousing up there at daybreak. And that had to be a little messy once in a while too, but generally it worked out pretty good. And we did fly. We flew some missions against. I was only on one mission against Korea. I flew a couple of missions against the Japanese mainland. The first one was a strafing mission against a radar site up on Kyushu Island, and then we went into the harbor and dropped our bombs and did a little shooting around there. After the war was over, well, I guess the last mission I was on, we were on our way to a shipping strike up in the Sea of Japan, and we had taken off early, and we were out about 4 hours, and the radio man got a call from base saying, "Return to base, hostilities have ended." So we turned around and came back, and that was probably one of the most unmilitary flights you ever saw in your lifetime, you know, coming back. We did get back, and we gave the area a really good buzz job. We weren't able to do that before. The old man didn't like that. But, we gave him a pretty good buzz job. And anyway, that was the end of the war. Then I did get in on a flight to Korea. We flew the 24th Corps into Korea, accepted a Japanese surrender, and I got my souvenir here is a map or a Japanese newspaper covering the attack on Pearl Harbor. I got that out of the University of Seoul. The flight, they picked us up at Gimpo in charcoal burner buses, and we had a bunch of brass from the 24th Corps, and they picked us up in charcoal burner buses and hauled us into town. And at the hotel, Kaijo Hotel, the brass got off there. The officers from the 24th Corps got off, and they took the flight crews out to the university to put us up in the library. And we had posted our own guard out there, and we had our own rations along. And you know, at that point in the war, I don't think anybody was really sure that the Japanese were going to surrender without doing something trickery. And we've been a kind of an uneasy night out there, but everything went fine. But I did get into the library, and I did find this newspaper, so unbeknown to anybody else, I brought it along home. So anyway, that was one of the last runs. The final run mine was, we had newspaper reporters coming in there after the war was over, and they wanted to fly over Japan and look for prisoner of war camps. And I had a guy from the Chicago Sun with me on this particular flight, and we went up with Kyushu, and we were flying along there at flow level, and maybe 1,000 feet or so, and all of a sudden we spotted a place that looked like a compound. We flew over it, and when we came back, we turned around, came back, and by the time we got back, there was a panel on the ground that said news. The prisoners had ripped up a bed sheet and made the word news on the ground. And we didn't have much, we couldn't land there or anything. So the reporter typed up a news release and tied it to a first aid kit, and we pitched it out. And they got it, and of course there was some real jubilation there. They knew something was up, but they didn't know exactly what. But anyway, then subsequently these people were brought back to Okinawa, where the Red Cross had set up a huge reception center and had roast turkey and ice cream and all the stuff. And these guys were used to meager rations, and they all got sick, but they were all happy anyway. But anyway, that was. I think I've taken enough time here. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to ask them. I know my duty was probably not near as hazardous as Douglas, but anyway,
Bergie, what does this armor consist of on a bomber?
what is the armor?
Yeah.
Armor?
The armor.
Not much. The armor plating, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, around the pilot seat, the whole pilot seat, under the floor of the pilot, up on the outside of that, little aluminum on the outside.
Small arms fire.
Small arm fire. That was our biggest enemy, small arm fire. Actually, we were kind of disappointed we didn't pick up a hole or two, because if we got a hole in the airplane, we got an extra point for that mission. Anybody?
Bergie, what was the cruising speed of that B-24?
All about 180, depending on your load, 180 miles an hour. It was a fantastic airplane. In fact, I got some stuff up here on the B-25. So I look at it, I got a Lord Hickey's forecast across the Pacific. There's a lot of pictures in here of the different type of missions that were going. But anyway, my unit has a reunion every 2 years. The group meets every odd year, and we meet every evening, I guess. No, this is even. It's the other way around. The group meets every even, we meet every odd. We were in Washington, D.C. last fall. But anyway, it's a really close-knit unit, this retirement unit. There's not a lot of original people left anymore, but the unit's being manned mostly now by second and third generation people that are coming. We have a good time. Any further questions?
Can I say one more thing? No. I'm still flying. I got my own airport, and I fly whenever the weather's nice. Here's a picture of a Waco. It's an open cockpit, 2 wings, and last week a friend of mine from Minneapolis keeps it in Florida, and then he brings it back to Minneapolis for the summer. So he asked me to go along with him, and we were flying. Just took off, and our first stop was in Florida, and we were about 6 miles out from the airport where we were going to stop. And he said, "Will you take the controls?" He says, "I have to change my map here." Well, when I lifted up my legs to put my feet on the rudders, the map flew out. So he says, "You got something up there in the stick that's blocking this?" And I looked between my legs. "No," I said, "no." And we kept climbing, and finally he looked out, and that map had blown out and wedged between the elevator. It makes it go up and down. So we were in a climb, and eventually you climb until you stalled, and down you went. So he says, "We're in trouble." Well, I said, "I'm in good hands, so you just, use good judgment." So what he did, he kept going up, and then he'd cut the throttle, and it would come down. And we were lucky we were only 6 miles out, and they had the fire trucks out and everything, and we made a good landing, and we were safe. But of all things, for that map to lodge in that elevator, and stick there, it probably never happen again. But so I'm still living on the edge.
Yeah, and if anybody's curious about what happened to the shot record, when I got to Sacramento, an orderly came down to the BOQ one morning and says, "Lieutenant, you're supposed to report to the dispensary." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I don't have a clue. You're supposed to report to the dispensary." So I go to the dispensary, and they said, "You don't have a shot record?" I said, "Yeah, I got a shot. I took my shot." "No, you don't have a shot record. You got to take your shots over." And I did. I had to take my shots over. And I didn't get my pay straightened out until I was home about 6 months from overseas, because I lost my pay record too. So that's about more of the story. If it's sealed in wax, don't touch it.
Well, I guess I just wanted to thank both Doug and Bergie for talking today. Again, before I mentioned, if you go down the hall and take a left by the bathrooms, there is, well, the restrooms are right there too, but there will be some bars and cookies and coffee and fruit punch, I believe. So If you want to go down there, and then you guys can ask questions, come up and take a look at the newspaper, some of the other stuff that Bergie and Doug brought. They could share, at least share some more stories, maybe even with this. Thanks for
Yeah, just in regard to the newspaper, I had this newspaper for eons, and I could never get anybody to translate the Japanese newspaper. Gordon Causeway, in Winona, the publisher of the Winona Daily News down there, he took it along to a newspaper convention, they all brought it back and said nobody would translate it. And I told that to Judge Madison, maybe 15 years ago. I said, gee, I got this newspaper and I'd really like to get it translated to find out what they had to say about that attack on Pearl Harbor. And he said, I know a court reporter up in the Twin Cities that is Oriental language proficient. Her name was Kay Keller. Quite a story. I'll just take a second, but I got in contact with her on the telephone, and I found out that she was a Japanese girl born in Seoul, Korea. She was 5 years old when I picked up the paper. She came over here and went to college over here and married a man by the name of Keller, and she was full Japanese and spoke the language. In fact, she was an Oriental language translator or court reporter. And she said, send it to me and I'll see what I can do with it. And I sent it to her, and we were on the phone several times, and she came on to a couple of questions that she couldn't answer on there. And the Japanese does not have a sound for WH like the WH sound. And she wanted to know what airports there were on Hawaii that got hit by the Japanese that time. So I started naming them, and I said, and I got the Wheeler. I said, oh, that's the one, the Wheeler. She said, see, that we don't have a WH sound in our language, and they couldn't translate that one. So anyway, the headlines have been translated here, and the key is up here. But this is the front page of the Japanese newspaper. It's getting pretty old now, but you're free to come up and take a look at it if you care.
All right, thank you for coming, and you guys can go on your way. Thank you.